Kevin Shane. I'm the director of GSummit, and a lot of our team members are around. You'll hear from Gabe in a minute. It's Ivan right there, and maybe Tavi's right here. There's a couple guys outside. I just want to thank you guys for coming tonight. I also want to thank NextJump, who is hosting us. This is NextJump's facility. They're an engagement recognition company. Gabe will talk a little bit more about them, but they're an awesome company, and they're good friends of ours because they gave us this space last minute. Sorry about the last minute change of location, but I'm glad they're all here. The agenda for the night, we're going to start off with a quick demo from Vigil. Kyle over here is going to jump up, and then after that you're going to hear from Gabe. He's going to give one of his famous gamification talks. And after that, we're going to do this Play for a Cause workshop where we invited Paul, are you here? Paul Quintero, and also Greg Kaiser. Paul's from Axiom, which is a microlending nonprofit, and Greg's from the Robin Hood Foundation. We're going to do a little workshop where we help them kind of solve a challenge, but we're going to actually all play a game. There's actually not room for everyone. So the first 40 people that raise their hand right now get in. But we'll figure that out at the end, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to end up leaving before we start that. But I want to now invite up Kyle. He's going to give a quick demo of his company Vigil, who's based in New York City. So here, let me set it up. Sorry. Is that cool?
Yeah, does this thing do no, I haven't. No, that would be great. And will this thing advance things?
It should. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Backwards. Sweet. Hi. So demo is a little bit inaccurate for this. We're a mobile app, and this is obviously not a mobile device. So you will not actually be seeing the app running in front of us. If you do want a really good demo during the Oscars, download the free app and play along. We've got a bunch of cool stuff happening that night. It's a good example, real-world experience of what's going on. So if you want to see a real demo, do it on Sunday. I'm going to explain what we are and why it has anything to do with what we're here to talk about tonight. So we are a loyalty app for the second screen. The second screen is this theory everyone has about what you're going to do while you're watching TV. You're on a smartphone, you're on a tablet, you're doing two things at once. Many people do that. So loyalty means we give you something for that. So we give you extrinsic motivation as well as intrinsic motivation for what you're doing. So here's how it works. You check in. First, you see what's on. We give you sorry, I forgot that part. We tell you what's on TV. We know what cable provider you've got, what station you've got, all that. So you've got a guide. We have to do some editorial promotions to let you know what good shows are on that night. Once you've decided what you want to watch, it's on your TV. You check in. It does audio recognition, listens to what's on your TV, checks a fingerprint, tells what you're watching. And then, as soon as that happens, you're getting points for what you're watching. It's like you just stepped onto the airplane, and now you're getting your frequent flyer miles. Then, while you're on the show, you have additional content. These buttons here take you to Twitter feeds, or the Facebook page for the show, or the IMDb page for the show, or you can engage with a game or an advertising engagement, which gives you additional points. So you're getting points while you're on the clock, and you're getting points while you're engaged. But it's under the user's control. We don't push ads to anybody. We just simply say, hey, here's something you can do if you want. So it's under your control. What is the value of these points? You can go to the rewards catalog and get whatever you want. You get Starbucks cards or Best Buy gift cards or all kinds of cool stuff. Pizza. I don't know. We just had beer. Beer.
Stand in that corner just because the camera.
Oh yeah, sure. I was like, why am I shooting? There we go. Much better. All right. So I want to give an example of what one of those engagements is. We created a real-time fantasy football game called My Guy. And what happens is, while the game is on the air, you can change out your players according to what you see happening on the screen. So unlike most fantasy football games, you pick your team and cross your fingers. With My Guy, you're watching the game on the air, you see your guy get benched, or you see somebody playing better, you just switch, and you can get more points for that. So the idea there is to create an engagement loop between the linear medium in front of you and the interactive medium in your hand, all as part of a gameplay loop. And that's fun. That's intrinsically fun. You're getting more points, you're scoring better than somebody else. That's just fun. But at the same time, by playing through this gameplay loop, goes from the main screen to the second screen and back, creates engagement. While you're getting that intrinsic motivation, you're also getting points, which you can then use to spend for stuff. So you're getting that extrinsic motivation as well. It's very very effective. 44% of all of our NFL check-ins led to a My Guy game session, so almost half of the people who checked in said, oh yeah, I'll play along with that. And 64% of players, we asked the people who play the game, hey, do you think this leads you to pay more attention to TV? 64% of them said yes. This means that not only is this making it more fun for the people watching TV, that piques the interest of networks and leagues who want people to be more engaged with television now. Sports is one of the few areas left where people will watch it live instead of DVRing or streaming. So that's a very powerful statement about the power of gamification, about the power of engagement. Other gamification elements in here, we do streaks and quests where you can get points or unlock rewards by doing a series of actions, much like you would see in a standard game. It encourages repeat usage. It makes you feel smart because you got rewards, you did the quest, you got the extra points, you got the extra rewards, you feel clever about that. We also randomly will give you Easter eggs, gifts, in your email afterwards. So if you check into a show, you might open your email the next day and you'll have free stuff. Thanks. And so it's that sort of a roulette wheel or the slot machine feel. You never know which check-in is going to give you free stuff in your email the next day. Gifts include points as well as outright gifts from rewards catalog, so it's fun stuff. So the way I like to explain our app fundamentally is you come for the points because you think you're going to get some free stuff, which you will. You can cash them in for real rewards, you can see familiar brands, all that cool stuff, but you stay for the fun. These are real numbers. Average minutes per user per month in mobile. I don't mean to say that we're bigger than Facebook. My point is, people hang around at Biggle for a really long time. And these are Google Analytics numbers, so after 30 minutes, we stop counting, right? So 30 minutes of inactivity, we stop counting your time. So these are actual minutes where you spend in the app taking actions. That is a bunch of minutes per month. Doesn't quite match what people watch TV per month, but sure kicks butt in the mobile space.
That's honestly almost pornographic.
Isn't it? That's why I stacked it up like that.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's amazing.
So fundamentally, it works. It works. We've been around for 1 year. Here's what we got so far. 2 million registered users. 70% of our active members use Biggle greater than 20 days per month. In the mobile space, where you're looking to fight clear of all the other apps on a phone, that is fantastic. 75 minutes per user session. That's again the Google Analytics number. So when people are using Biggle, they're using it for a long old time. And that's interacting with it. That's doing stuff in the app. 133 million program check-ins, 1.3 million rewards redeemed. People using the app, it's doing its thing. So that wasn't a demo, but now you'll understand what you're doing on Sunday.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any questions? I'm also set a Q&A.
Yeah, Q&A time. Anybody clapping?
Go.
Is the audio fingerprinting technology yours?
Yeah. A lot of people do it now. Honestly, I'd love to say, yes, we're so smart, but a bunch of people do it. We just did our own. Yeah, and there's lots of other ways of doing content recognition. Audio is the first one, but there's other ways to do it.
I know Biggle, I love it. I've already earned a Starbucks rewards card. Great idea. Will you ever let users check in during time-shifted recordings, or is it always going to have to be live?
You can right now, up to 7 days time shift. Sorry, yeah. The question was, will we ever let users check into time-shifted recording, like recorded shows? Right now, we're focused on the live broadcast. The play-along experience, of course, is never going to work for time-shifted. So, like the My Guy games and those sorts of things. However, we do let you check in up to 7 days time-shifted now. Turns out that most people who do time shift end up watching the show within a week. So we made sure to cover the majority of the market, rather than keeping an infinite stock of every show ever. We keep it within a week. If we get a good business reason for extending that, we'll fire up the more servers and larger databases to keep a longer time period. So the answer is not right now, but I can see a reason why we might later. Yeah.
How would you compare yourself to ZBox?
ZBox is fundamentally only about the intrinsic rewards. They provide additional content, some play-along experiences. There's a number of other apps that do that as well, IntoNow, Miso, that sort of thing. The difference is they don't provide an extrinsic reward, which means people will come try them out, and if they're not fully engaged by the intrinsic rewards, the moment-to-moment experience of ZBox, they will leave. And that's what I've seen over and over again in the second screen space, is there isn't enough stickiness for anyone to stay. People will get these huge registered user numbers, but terrible active user numbers.
So you feel like the real-world reward is the thing that keeps you coming back?
You need both. If it was just points, you'd lose just as well. The thing is, for any, I should explain my background. I spent 20 years making video games before I did this. So I know very well the second to second, the minute to minute, the hour to hour, and the week to week play cycle. You need something that keeps the user wanting to come back the next second, the next minute, the next hour, the next week. Points will keep you in it for a while, but if this moment to moment isn't fun, it'll feel like a chore, it'll feel like grinding, and you won't want to do it. However, if the second to second is the only fun thing, you'll forget to do it. If an app's not right in front of you, you forget that second to second thing is awesome. So you need to think, oh, I should check in to get my points, and then once you're in, it's fun. Something like that.
Sorry.
One more question, just so we can.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
It's not my
It's
talk.
good. It is good.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I really love GetGlue, which you currently acquired. Are there going to be some kind of a marriage of what GetGlue does, a separate app or service with Biggle?
So the question was, she likes GetGlue a lot. Are we merging with them? Actually, we're not. We both companies decided to walk away from that. And the question was further, what would we have done had we merged? And I sort of spun it there to match reality. And what we would have done is we wouldn't set fire to any brand that we merged with. That would be dumb. Why would you merge with a brand and then destroy it? They are fundamentally a social, web-based media check-in service, and that's what we would use that side of the business for. They would also benefit from having extrinsic rewards, so bringing Biggle rewards to the GetGlue platform. I think the best way for an entity like ours and A like theirs to merge would be to take the strengths of both.
Awesome.
Aces.
Kyle, thanks so much.
That was so great. And when I said earlier that that was like porn, that engagement slide, anyone who's ever had to work on an engagement project in a crowded market, right, will know why I found that pornographic, because they're just like blowing everybody else out of the water. And I love the idea of the combination, like trotting out the combination of intrinsic and extrinsic rewards to accomplish long-term engagement. Most of you know the things that I have to say. You'll know that I agree with that wholeheartedly. So that's a really, really good insight. Thank you. It's awesome. And thank all of you, also doubly awesome, that you're here tonight on a rainy evening in New York City to hear this in the middle of all the things you could be doing for Social Media Week. You're doing this, which is astonishing. And so I'm ever grateful. It's always great to get everyone together and do these gsummitX meetups that we do periodically. And so today I want to talk about gamification. Ha! Surprise. But I want to put it in a particular context, which has been really kind of like on my mind lately. And so, by observation, from a thought process, I feel like we're in the middle of this sort of crisis of engagement. I don't know if you all see this the same way that I do, but I feel like it feels like impossible to get and keep people's attention. Maybe if you're Biggle, you found the secret sauce, but for most of us, I mean, like the crazy stuff, and like it's becoming a kind of accelerating issue, and to a great extent, we haven't had the data to back that idea up. It's just a feeling that many of us have, that it's hard to get and keep people's attention. But lately there's been some data that start to look at the actual question of how engaged people are. So this from Microsoft research, 98% of people will decide in less than 10 seconds whether or not a website is worth staying on or not. Now, think about it for yourself. I know that sounds like a shocking number, but really, like when you go to a new website, how long does it take you to know? Right? It's got to load immediately, it's got to look good, it's got to like feel good, right? You can make really fast decisions. And I was joking about this because like I'm old enough to remember that it used to take longer than this for websites to load, right? And it wasn't that long ago that like 30 seconds or a minute would be totally normal. Or talking about second screen. So Nielsen just released data a few weeks ago that 80% of the population has in the last month used a second or third screen while watching some broadcast medium. Okay? Now, I don't know about you, but it wasn't that long ago that TV was the distraction. And now we need a distraction from the distraction to feel like our minds are occupied during a 22-minute span. It wasn't that long ago that all of us were trained to sit through a 22-minute span without interruption and without qualification. With this one, crazy stat, 20% of the population checks their smartphone every 10 minutes of the day while they are awake, from the minute they wake up until the time they go to bed at night. That is 100 checks of their smartphone a day on average. Just put that into perspective. Now think, that's just 20% of the population. The other 80%, it's not like they're not checking their smartphone. This is just the top group of users, and this number is only going up. So in context, it seems quite obvious that now we're getting some data to back up this idea that we have some kind of engagement crisis. Yeah, and so to me, the interesting thing about this kind of coalesces around, all this kind of coalesces for me around a particular conversation that I had a few months ago. One of the world's largest car companies came to us, as sometimes companies do, looking for advice and counsel on engagement, and they were like, hey Gabe, we have a problem. And I was like, what is your problem? And they were like, oh, American teenagers don't want to drive anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, well, for the first time since the introduction of the vehicle, the teenage population of America has a declining interest in driving. It's not that they have a declining interest in cars, they just don't want to be the person behind the wheel. So when they go out with their friends, they compete to not drive, which is the exact inverse of what it was like when I was a teenager, which, by the way, I know I'm old, but it wasn't that long ago, was the exact opposite. It was who was going to be the driver. And now they don't want to drive. And I was like, okay, what are the reasons? The research? Okay, there's a green element, there's a money element, but the big thing that came out of their research was because kids cannot use their phones and be on Instagram and text and be on Facebook while they're driving, they're opting instead not to drive. Right? Now, isn't that interesting? It's interesting that such an entrenched behavior, something that is so associated with the fundamentals of being American, is being upended by Instagram, right? This is a very interesting question. It points to, it's food for thought for all of us, it points to the important hedonism of human beings, which is what, like water flowing down a mountain, what path people follow, which path of least resistance they follow, right? They follow that which is most rewarding, emotionally and viscerally. And so they're opting out of things like driving in order to be able to Instagram. And so at the heart of all this is really the effect of games. Now, I haven't made mention at all of people's consumption of traditional video games or other kind of casual games or games of those kind. Actually, those aren't even the games that I'm concerned with. I think they're a significant and growing part of people's media consumption, but those are not the games I'm talking about. I'm talking about games like Instagram, right? Now, I know Instagram is not a game, but Instagram conspicuously looks kind of like a game, doesn't it? This is a scoreboard on Instagram every time I log in, every time I show up. Their feedback, their notification system is cribbed from Zynga. It literally is lifted, message by message, from Zynga's design. Or Mint.com, with its constant set of challenges and points and ways that it reveals the arc of knowledge and understanding about finance. Foursquare, which as most of you know, created an entire behavior out of thin air that is a kind of dumb behavior that still doesn't make any sense. But they did that by using concepts from games like badges. And Nike Plus, which has actually changed the definition of what it means to be an athletics company. Is being an athletics company now about making shoes? Or is it about making software experiences that get 5 million people a day to log in and log their behavior? And selling some shoes and apparel around that core service, right? These companies all transformed or invented industries and behaviors based on taking the ideas from games out of them. So of course, this notion, broadly speaking, is a concept of gamification, which, for those of you who know it, is the process of engaging users, changing behaviors, solving problems by taking the best ideas from games, loyalty programs, and behavioral economics and applying those to the challenges that you face. Critically, it's important to understand that gamification is a process and not a product. It is a system that requires continuous investment. It starts with a small assertion about what behaviors it is that you want to change and expands from there through a series of continuous improvements over time. It's not a product, it's not a thing that you slap onto something. It's a process that we do for the long term. If you do it well, you can expect to achieve, now there's a kind of consensus baseline for engagement improvement that is emerging. I won't present this as data that's been conclusively researched yet, it's just a consensus estimate. If you do your gamification project reasonably well, you can expect to raise your engagement levels by about 30% on core metrics like recency, frequency, duration, virality, and ratings. Measures of engagement, yes? These things can be increased by about 30% by doing a reasonably good job at gamification. Now, some companies, and some of the examples I'm going to show you tonight, people have had substantially greater increases in engagement. We've already seen one example. You'll see some more. I don't want you to, one thing I don't want any of you to do as you become part of this like movement of gamifying the world, I don't want you to go back to your companies and be like, we can do in our industry what Vigil did in Second Screen right out of the gate. We're going to raise engagement by 300% tomorrow as soon as we gamify this thing. Because by the way, that's really, really, really unlikely to happen. It takes years, sometimes years, but definitely months at minimum, of trial and error, experimentation, process orientation, testing, measurement, to be able to build a system that's engaging over the long term. So you're all hopefully going to do something really awesome, but you're going to start with reasonable expectations. You're going to start by identifying the metrics that you need to talk about and measure, and building something that evolves over time to create that measurement. It's also important to acknowledge that gamification is not just about badges. This is pretty common for those of you who took the Coursera gamification course or have read the awesome writings of Kevin Moorbach, a professor at Penn. You'll know that he talks about PBL, which is points, badges, and levels, to describe a kind of set of gamification frameworks or ideas. Often it comes across sort of pejoratively, but suffice it to say points, badges, levels, badges on their own, all these things, these are all important mechanics that pretty much need to be present in your system no matter what you do. You will almost always have badging, you will almost always have points, and you may almost always have levels. None of them are bad, they're not bad and they're not good, they're tools. But any one of them alone is insufficient to give you the engagement bump that you're looking for by using gamification. They need to be part of a long-term system. And the second thing, and this is the biggest mistake that people make about gamification, is they think that it's about making everything into a fucking game. All the time. That's like the first thing that people want to do. You know what? You know what we need to do? We need to make this into a game. Let's make a game out of it. Put a bird on it. Pickle it. That's what we need to do. Right? I was joking about it earlier. It's like a fucking hipster nightmare for games. Right? It's like when I was cool. Like it's an absurdist view of the world. Okay? If you have a shitty product, making it into a game isn't going to make it suddenly amazing. Right? And let me point out to you that the vast majority of games fail. The vast majority of entertainment products fail. Large gaming companies go out of business every few weeks because they can't make great games. Right? Adding game concepts to something does not give you a magical hall pass that will transform your mediocre life into amazingness. Okay? I want to be really clear. This is work. It takes hard work. It takes diligence. It takes effort. It takes looking at patterns, dissecting those patterns, bringing those things to your project. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about what examples from games and loyalty programs and behavioral economics can you apply to your particular situation without assuming that you can simply, use some transformative metaphor and arrive at magic, because that's not how it works. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples and some design patterns. But first I want to tell you about me, for those of you who don't know me. So I'm Gabe Zickerman. I've written 3 books on the subject of gamification. Game-based marketing, which came out in 2010, around the same time this discussion really started. Gamification by Design, which came out in 2011. And this year's The Gamification Revolution, which is published by McGraw-Hill, comes out in April. And it's a look at the strategy, companies that are using gamification strategically, and how they use that and how they've been able to transform their businesses and markets. Also, I'm the editor-in-chief of Gamification Co. Ivan is our managing editor. He's here. I run a company, and Gamification Co., by the way, is a great site and resource if you want to learn more about gamification, examples, stories, so on and so forth. I run a company called Dopamine, which is a strategic consultancy. We help companies, big and small, governments, apply gamification to their strategic needs and build cool things. We run this conference called GSummitX, which some of you know about, some of you don't. The next one takes place in April 16th through the 18th. It is an awesome, awesome event. And if you can make it to San Francisco and you're interested in the subject, I highly recommend it. There's a discount code up here. It's GSMW. You can save some money. You'll love the event. It's astonishing. I love it. I'm so excited about it. Okay. But even if you can't come, take note of this URL, gsummitX.com. It is a site where you can watch videos Many of the people who've made the examples that I'm going to talk about today, the leading people who've made the most successful and some of the most reviled examples of gamification, their full-length videos are available on gsummit.com. And I encourage you to go there and watch the ones that you think are relevant, the ones that you find most interesting. Dig deeper into what it is that they did as they shared their examples and patterns. Okay? So it's useful to have. And if you come to the show, by the way, you can earn a certification in gamified design. So we offer a certification course that you can take with me or with Mario Herger there. It's on day 1 of the event. Lots of fun, really cool. Please, by all means, come join us. It's great. Okay, so why does gamification work? There's some basic science behind why it works. And this science is, there's lots of different things happening in your brain when you play games. But the most important mechanism is what's called intrinsic reinforcement. Okay? So here's how intrinsic reinforcement works. Anytime you challenge yourself to do something, doesn't matter what it is, no matter how big or small, and you accomplish that thing, your brain secretes a little bit of a magical neurochemical called dopamine. You'll notice I like this word. Dopamine is a pleasure chemical. It signals, it feels like pleasure. So challenging yourself to something and then achieving it is pleasurable. Now, isn't that an interesting phenomenon, if you think about it for a second? It helps explain a lot of what's awesome and shitty about the world all in one moment. Because this doesn't need to be good, right, in order to trigger the pleasure. It just needs to be something you accomplished. Now, what's interesting is that in the real world, this happens, pretty rarely. You'd be lucky. You're pretty lucky if you get this positive reinforcement once a month or once a year. It's a pretty good life you're leading if you can beat your personal best in a marathon, learn a new language, lose 20 pounds, do all that over and over again. But in the game world, we try to do this to people deliberately, sometimes hundreds of times per hour. It's by design. And so it's critical to note how that design can make you move. So remember earlier when I said don't make a game out of it? Okay, here's an example where it actually worked out to make a game out of it. Just to give you some, something else to think about. So Domino's, the pizza chain that I don't really eat at, built this game called, I'm not embarrassed to say that, I don't like Domino's. Built this game called Pizza Hero, okay? Now, in Pizza Hero, you play a pizzaiolo, or a pizzaiola, somebody who makes pizzas, yes? You grab the ingredients, you make them, the better you are at it, the higher your score, you level up, you move through it. You can take any pizza that you've made and instantly turn that into an actual order at Domino's. So whatever the pizza you designed, click a button. After you've done it, you have to succeed at it, yes? And you can turn that into an immediate order. And if you're really good at it, you can apply for a job to work at Domino's. True story. True story. In the first 6 weeks, Domino's got more than 1 million people to download and play with this app. Today they sell multiple millions of dollars worth of pizza a week using Pizza Hero. And they've recruited, they haven't disclosed how many people they've been recruiting from the app, but they've known to be recruiting from it actively. Right? So this is an example, this is the rare example of where they've also managed to achieve kind of a holy trinity of things, because they're teaching you how their process works, creating a positive impression of their brand, selling a product, monetizing an actual action out of it, and potentially recruiting you out of it. You can thread this needle, friends. I would like to hear your idea, for sure. Okay, another example, many of you see me talk about this, but it's one of my favorite examples of gamification at work in a kind of different way, is speed camera lottery. So you all familiar with speeding cameras? You know how they work, you drive by them and get a ticket in the mail. So in the Nordic countries, like Sweden and Denmark and Norway, the ticket that you get for speeding is based on, not on how fast you're going, so not on how much above the limit you're going, but on how much money you make. So Sweden's given out a $250,000 ticket, as an example, in 2010 for speeding, true story. Big ticket. So set against this backdrop, a guy named Kevin Richardson, as part of a competition, reimagines the speeding camera. And here's what he does. So instead of you driving by the speeding camera above the speed limit, getting a ticket, this big nasty ticket in the mail, the way speed camera lottery works, anyone who drives by the speeding camera at or below the limit automatically gets a lottery ticket to split the proceeds of the people who spend. Right? Ticket money goes in a pot, government takes a share, comply with the rules, you get a lottery ticket. Right? So let me ask you this. Which method is better at reducing speeding? Okay? Option A. we trust you, you're a pretty good person, but if we catch you out, man, we're gonna fuck you. Or slow positive reinforcement for every action that you take right, and then a punishment if you don't. Which one do you think is the better one? Okay, B. Obviously, huh? You know, because it's up here, that's gonna be the right model. But let me just tell you how much more. This speed camera lottery reduced speeding in Stockholm by 20 kilometers per hour at the point of intervention. And the only thing they did was put this sign up at a corner. There was no marketing, there was no PR, there were no pamphlets, there were no leaflets, there was no instruction manual, just this. And just to put this into perspective, the United States has changed the national speed limit 3 times in the last 40 years. It has had 0 effect on speeding. Study after study in the UK shows that nothing changes the average speed of drivers. Not additional enforcement, not the price of tickets, not the speed limit in an area, not signs that say kids here, baby on board, it doesn't fucking matter, people love to speed. Okay? This slows people down, this. Nothing else, this. Right? An amazing little moment of what we think of as game thinking. Really good ideas. So what all good gamified systems have, what all engaging systems have, is 3 core elements. Feedback, friends, and fun. The 3 Fs. I'll show you some examples and some design patterns. You think about how the 3 Fs are embodied in these. The more of the 3 Fs you can put in anything that you design, doesn't matter what it is, even if you're not gamifying, okay? The more the 3 Fs you put into something, the more people will want to use it, the more they'll want to come back to it, the more meaningful it'll be to them. These are the 3 Fs. So feedback, how you're doing. Friends, your social graph for your colleagues. Fun is a little bit more complicated, because that's a little different depending on who you are. So we'll talk about that. So, all right, so Nike Plus, we talked about it a little bit before. Nike Plus is effectively, a piece of hardware and some software, so you clip it on yourself or it's in your shoe and you run around and it tracks your performance, and then you go online and it shows you how you did and gives you lots and lots and lots of feedback. It's a quantified self system, for those of you who know that phrase, designed for a mass market audience. As we described, it's gotten up to about 5 million users, really transforming the company. Before they launched Nike Plus, Nike wasn't the brand for serious runners. New Balance was the brand for serious runners. Today, if you're a serious runner, Nike Plus, you're wearing Nike Plus on your body when you go out for a run. Another great example is Tabasco. So maybe some of you in the audience have worked on it. This is a project called Tabasco Nation, and the basic idea, it's such a brilliant idea, that the concept behind Tabasco Nation is that every drop of Tabasco sauce that you put on something is a statement about your personality, and also a point that you earn in the Tabasco virtual economy. Every drop is a point, yes? It's a Facebook community. You earn points by taking various challenges, by using Tabasco, inviting your friends. Then you can redeem those points for experiences, different kinds of real-world experiences that Tabasco set up and virtual experiences. Tabasco actually doubled its total social media volume, including users, from the introduction of Tabasco Nation. Doubled. So from under 500,000 to about 1 million active Facebook users. At the heart of this are a number of different mechanics. One of the most interesting ones to me is what's called the Desire Engine, and this is by Nir Eyal, who's a lecturer at Stanford and blogs at Near and Far, also a speaker at G-Summit, was last year, will be again this year. And his basic premise is the way that you create this kind of engagement is to think about a loop of behavior. It looks a little bit like a viral loop for those of you who've done viral loop design, but basically you start with a trigger that's either external or internal, someone saying, hey, do this, or a system saying, hey, do this, or you internally saying, I want to do this. And then the next step is some action that you take, or that the system takes. After you take this action, you get some kind of reward, a variable reward, so you can't predict exactly what the reward will be from the action that you take. And then after that variable reward, you're asked as a user to recommit to the experience. And then that prompts another kind of trigger. This loop, in Nir's view, which I think is actually a pretty good design concept for overall how we design engagement, this loop in Nir's view is what creates a kind of virtuous circle of constant interaction with users. And a couple things that are different from the standard kind of viral loop design is this notion that there's variable reward and the notion that there's a recommitment. And commitment is the idea that the user commits to come back at a certain time, that they commit to proceed with an experience and they make that demonstrable. Another framework that helps us understand how to design great gamified experiences is autonomy, mastery, and purpose. If you guys have read Dan Pink's book Drive, you'll know that this features prominently in there. And systems that are good at long-term engagement are filled with autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So one of my favorite examples comes from the lovely folks at NextJump. So this is Charlie Kim. He's the CEO of NextJump. I'm sure he'd be here right now if he could be. And he was a speaker last year at gsummitX, awesome guy. So Charlie wanted to get the employees here at NextJump to work out because he believes that fitness is important, that the more you work out, the better it is for the company, less absenteeism, but also for you. You're healthier, health insurance costs go down, and you're smarter, your cognition is better if you work out. So he wanted to get the employees to work out here at NextJump. So the first thing that he did, which is what most of the big companies you probably work for have done, is he put a gym in all of his offices here. All 4 of their global offices, put a gym in, used the gym for free. He found that a handful of people were using the gym. It was the people who were at Equinox paying big money, traded down from their $200 a month subscription, used the free gym at the office, yeah? And he was like, okay, this is not the result I want. This is the classic case of I give people tools, but they don't do what I want them to do. So now I need to incentivize them. So in step 2, he did what many of you who are marketers would do. Anyone? What do you do? Yes, he set up a prize, right? It was the first thing that marketers do when they think about how to incentivize behavior, right? So he was like, okay, top 5 people who go to the gym the most often in the space of a year will split a $20,000 prize. That was the concept. All right, pretty good numbers, nice prize, just like a sweepstakes, yay. And he got about 12% of the employees here at NextJump to work out on a regular basis. That is 2 or more times per week, yeah? Which is pretty good. And in most environments, that kind of behavior change would already be sufficient. 12% is a pretty good number from 0. But Charlie's pretty driven, and he was like, I think we need to do better, and we can do better than that. So he introduced 2 mechanics to this equation. The first one was he let people play in teams instead of individually. And the second one was he set up a leaderboard so that folks could compare their performance against each other. The teams could, yeah. Now, there's a lot more stuff, and you can listen to his speech. He'll talk about things like fit rank. They created a ranking system to point score to figure out how fit you were and so on, how to balance the economy in that. But this is the basic premise. And today, more than 4/5, 80% of the employees here at NextJump work out on a regular basis. Think about it. That's a big number, man. That is more than the people at your gym that are working out on a regular basis. I'll tell you that. In fact, the American Gym Association says the average gym, 33% of the attendees of the average American gym only go to the gym once per year. Just to put that into perspective, give you a sense of that. And now, I'll tell you that the couple things that Charlie did right. He invoked tribalism by letting people play in teams. Tribes are important. Tribes are really meaningful. People who are not normally bigots turn into bigots when tribes are involved. Think about the Olympics, right? If you're not a flag-waving person, that's the 2 weeks every 4 years that you get kind of worked up, okay? The second thing that he did was he used leaderboards properly. So he used them in a positive, motivational way. The third thing that he did was that he didn't force people to play. Let's remember this lesson. No matter how fun a game is, it doesn't matter how fun a game is. No matter how fun it is, if someone forces you to play it, it's going to be not that fun. And now I'll give you the kind of gotcha thing about Charlie's story that I love the most, the NextJump story. Almost 90% of the employees at this company are software engineers. That's the milieu in which they made this big behavior change. This is not a fitness organization. Software engineers are not they're not exactly known for being like gym rats, right? Yeah.
They're doing a dance competition right now. That's not why he's not here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I think we should all be there. So, the second example, another example that I really like comes from Autodesk, which many of you may know as a 3D modeling software company. So, Autodesk has a trial to paid model where you can download a free trial of their software and play it for 30 days and use it for 30 days. And then after 30 days, you can buy it. And the average cost of a piece of software from Autodesk is $3,500. Okay? It's a big number. So they looked at their stats and found that the longer somebody used the trial, the more likely they were to convert and buy the product. So the more time they actively spent with the trial. And they realized that people were dropping out of the trial for complicated 3D software because they didn't know how to use the product. They'd come in and be like, yeah, I want to do 3D modeling, and they'd come in and they'd start doing stuff in the product and then be like, I can't figure this shit out, and then leave the trial and never buy the software. So they knew, and think about this metrics-driven thinking, they knew that in order to get to the result they wanted, they needed to create a funnel of engagement that brought somebody from an initial instinct through to being engaged enough to want to buy it, meaning stay in the trial, use it for as long as possible. So they turned to gamification as the solution and built a series of missions that you can play as part of the trial for Autodesk 3D modeling software, for 3ds Max. And so it sounds a little bit cheesy. It's like a thing like a Carmen Sandiego kind of game, and you go through and like you go through different places, and each location you have to get your passport stamped by completing a little challenge with some element of the product, and so on and so forth. They've increased trial usage by 40% and sales by 15%, which at $3,500 a pop is a big number, using this system for their software. And there'll be a G Summit talking about how they did it and what they did. Another example that I kind of like is Innovate from IBM. So IBM built a business process management software tool internally, a little game that their consultants could use to model business processes internally. And then they thought, hey, why don't we put this up on the web and see what happens, make it free. And today, Innovate, which has a couple of different manifestations, including this game called City Manager, which is like SimCity for real people who manage real cities, is used by about 1,000 institutions around the world, like universities and nonprofits and governments, to teach how to do business process reengineering. It is also IBM's single biggest lead generator for the corporation worldwide. So this is the main way that IBM drives revenue inside the company, is to use a gamified BPM tool as a lead generator. And there'll be Fendra, who built this for IBM in their Serious Games Lab, will also be at G Summit. Interestingly as well, you'll see a number of other big enterprise companies who've done this and turned their gamified solutions internally into centers of excellence that they talk about externally. And one of those companies I think is really particularly interesting is Siemens, the German engineering firm Siemens. I'm sure many of you have seen them. So Siemens has this game called Plantville, which only sounds a little bit like Zynga's Farmville, but it's like its own thing. And basically in this game, you get to play a plant manager, a factory manager, or something like that, where you go online and you run a factory or plant. So right now, 25,000 people are playing Plantville online as we're sitting here, hanging out. Of those, 4/5 or so actually manage plants for a living. So let's see if we get this straight. You go into your job, running a factory, you come home at 6 o'clock, you drive back from your job, check out, sit down, order some pizza, and play factory manager all night long, right? Until your spouse has to pry you from the computer and put you to bed. Okay, now, this sounds crazy. On the surface, sounds crazy. Now, some of you may have seen that there were a bunch of news reports about soldiers in Afghanistan going out, doing their exercises, coming back to barracks and playing war games when they got back, with equal kind of amounts of surprise to this story. Here's the thing, though. This is an interesting application of gamification and thought process, which is, though it doesn't make sense on the surface, when you start to think about it, what gamified experiences like this allow you to do is they allow you to play with the parameters of your job in a way that you can't do in real life. They let you, you wanted to become a plant manager for some reason, you enjoyed that, and this is the way that you can do it. They let you fail safely, right? They let you experience things in a unique way. The way that I like to think about it is, so think about this, so you're like you're a nuclear plant manager, right? That's what you do for a living. And every day you get up and you go into your job hoping, praying that the plant doesn't melt down. But you kind of think it'd be awesome if it did, right? But it would totally suck. So I hope it doesn't. But kind of hope that it does, a little bit, every day. Right? No, it's not unreasonable.
Yeah.
You've trained for that your whole life. That's what you do for a living. It would be cool to do it. You know how. You want to test yourself. You want to see what it'd be like. So Plantville and other kinds of gamified experiences, especially those that are vocational, allow you to potentially do that. That's one of the things they can do. They can let you safely experience what that might be like.
Do they know if that improves the performance of the plant managers?
You know what? It's a great question. In terms of performance, the question was, does it actually improve performance? It's hard to tell I don't know the stats for this. There are lots of other training games that do. One of the most interesting ones, examples to me about performance, is the doctor test. It was called the Top Gun test that was done here at Beth Israel. And it turned out that doctors that played, what were they playing? They were playing, doctors that played certain first-person shooters anyway in this test were 47% more accurate at doing surgery. So they were 50% less likely to have accidents and complete surgeries accurately. That's just one kind of fun.
Which
that's
game?
one fun. I have to look it up because now I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's called the Top Gun test at Beth Israel. You can look it up. was a little controlled study about gameplay and medical performance. So another design pattern that's important, you've probably heard it, rewards, and then we'll have time to hang out and play this game. So when you're giving your users rewards, a hierarchy that I've developed that's meaningful is called SAPS, and it stands for Status, Access, Power, and Stuff. And this is the list of rewards that you want to give your users for good behavior in order of stickiest to least sticky, most meaningful to least meaningful, and also, which is very important, cheapest to most expensive, right? Now, what I mean by this is very, very important. I'm not saying that tangible rewards, gift cards, cash, whatever, isn't important to users. On the contrary, people really like that. They like tangible rewards. But if your whole system is based on giving people cash and discounts and coupons and free shit, if that's all you have, if that's your focus, if that's your effort, let's be really clear, your costs are going to scale curvilinearly for the duration of your business. They will never go down. They will never scale. They will always only go up, only one way. Because people habituate to cash rewards very quickly. They habituate to all rewards, but cash rewards are real expensive for habituation. And habituation means becoming accustomed to something, to the point where it becomes natural or non-significant. Think about this. Remember your first paycheck? Your first one, the first one you ever got. Remember how that felt? Right? You got that paycheck, you may have gotten your money in your hand or in your bank account, and you looked at it and you were like, I'm fucking rich! Right? And you maybe took your friends out for drinks, or you took your spouse out for dinner, or your family out to celebrate, and you buy something special because you were like, yeah! Okay, when was the last time you felt that way about a paycheck? Right? Now, I guarantee you the thing that gets your heart racing is if your paycheck doesn't show up, not when it does. This is really important. This is the same lesson about all kinds of rewards. So status, access, and power can be scaled because they're virtual rewards. They can be scaled up. Stuff rewards, linearly more expensive over time. So it's important to balance those off. And one of my favorite examples of this comes from Guilt Group. Those of you I'm sure know Guilt, the daily deal kind of flash sale website. It sells sort of luxury items. And it's one of my favorite examples. Alexandra keynoted it at G-Summit. I encourage you to watch her video from before, one of the founders. So if you're one of the top 0.1% of shoppers, 1/10 of 1% shoppers on Guilt, you get inducted into a loyalty program called Guilt Noir. Noir. Yes. And, sorry, I'm Canadian, so I have to get that accent right. So you're inducted into Guilt Noir. And you receive in the mail from Guilt, as a token of their appreciation, a little black box. Inside the black box is a scented candle, a folding brochure, and a small black card. Now that you're a member of the exclusive Guilt Noir, do you get discounts on Guilt stuff? No, you do not. Do you get 1 point for every $1 that you spend on Guilt, which you can then redeem for free merchandise? No. You know what you get? Let me tell you what you get. Every Guilt sale, every day, this flash sale starts at noon. If you're a Guilt Noir member, your flash sale starts at 11:45. True story. You get 15 extra minutes to spend money with Guilt every day. Now, it also means that you get your choice of benefits. You get your choice of stuff, so stuff doesn't run out, right? Small group, really elite, you come in first, but fundamentally they didn't really give you anything of value to them. They didn't pay anything for that benefit other than the code, to write that code to allow certain people to start at 11:45. It's like the, you know, at the airport, like when you're getting on the plane, and there are those two lines right at the plane, right? There's the line with the red carpet and the line without it. There's the line with the like gold sign and the line without the gold sign. Okay, so you know that experience? So I know this is going to come as a huge shock to you, but that was invented in 2005, that idea. It was invented by Continental Airlines, happened here in Newark. Before that, here's how we boarded. First class passengers are now ready for board, right? Passengers in, behind row 25 are now board. That's how they used to board. And in 2005, Continental was like, wait, let's try a little experiment. What happens if we take that private benefit for who gets to board first, right? What happens if we take all those nameless, faceless people who are sitting on the chairs and can't tell each other apart until the last second before they get on the plane? And what if we make that really public? What if we put up a velvet rope, like they'd seen at so many clubs? Huh? And then what? and see what happens. And what kind of fuckery ensues as a result of that design. I mean, I don't know how many of you, if you have the privilege or pleasure of being on the red carpet side, I can tell you, crazy behavior out of this little change. Crazy shit. People policing each other's boarding passes, which is my favorite. Like they're looking over at you. Are you supposed to be in this line? You know? Husbands and wives elbowing each other, right? How come we're not in that line? What's in that line? All kinds of crazy shit, okay? All as a result of elevating these status access benefits to the forefront of the discussion. And the funniest part to me about it is for all that angst and energy and ennui, the plane doesn't get there any faster, right? The benefits of being on that red carpet lane are ones you always had before. But by making this change and elevating the status and access benefit in this case, they created a tremendous amount of loyalty, a sign of energy, some frustration, something to overcome, and so on. And these examples are all around you. So I certainly want to encourage you in this regard to think a lot about that that case, how you make that more, how you use these non-cash rewards to incentivize. So fundamentally, I want to leave you with one parting thought, which is we've talked about, I've shown you some design patterns, you've thought about status access powering stuff, you've thought about the desire engine, we've talked about feedback, friends, and fun, you've seen a few examples across industry, different approaches, you've seen Vigil, okay, so you've seen lots of different things, and you know that you can go to Gamification Co. and find out more and so on. All of these things sound like nice to have things, right? Where if you apply them to whatever it is that you're doing now, you can improve the lot of your company, improve your place in the world, and increase engagement. But I want to challenge you to think about something, which is, are they really nice to have things? Or are they actually things that you have to have? Many people view this as like a nice optional design question, but in fact, as this world has become so noisy and so distracting, as the pitch of that only continues to increase, not decrease, and as a whole generation of kids comes online, brought up on video games like contemporary video games, with the expectation that the world operates in that way, that it's full of little distractions, they're positively rewarding, and that software is the thing that brings me back to something. I don't have to remember anything. It's going to tell me when I need to remember something, come back to it. And that my friends are everywhere, and that all the time, everything is mobile and in front of me at all times, and everything is fun. In that climate, is it really optional? I don't know. But I would say in the arms race for engagement and attention, the folks that are able to master this particular set of technologies, this particular design approach first, the ones who understand it's a process, it's a long game, are the ones who stand to benefit the most from what's happening in the market. Hopefully that's you. So just as a reminder, videos and stuff, gsummitX.com. You can come join us in San Francisco in April to GSMW. If you're interested in being involved in some other way other than coming, by all means, we'd love to have you. This is my Twitter handle. It's @gzakerm, for those of you who don't know. My Twitter handle is right there. We'll take a few minutes for questions, and then after those questions are over, we're going to go next door and play this game together. And this game, I'm going to facilitate, I'm going to run the game. We're going to do it for a great nonprofit. It is a game that you can use in your own organization, so after you play with us tonight, you can take it back and use it to drive innovation inside your organization, do it for your company, whatever, so you have a chance to kind of learn. There's not that many seats in there, so it only will accommodate the people who who grab a seat in there, but it's an awful lot of fun, and happens pretty quickly, so hopefully you'll come join us and learn all about it. So any questions? Yes, ma'am.
You talk about status and work with leaderboards,
Yeah.
and I work with school children, and the American school system don't want to hurt people's feelings, don't want to, like the people who are lagging behind, don't want to show them anything, make them feel bad, so how do you deal with that?
So the question was, it was school related, but leaderboards to show status can be demotivating, and some environments don't like showing leaderboards if it makes people feel badly. So how do you handle status and leaderboards in an environment where you can't just be ruthless? Okay, so number one, we no longer design leaderboards the way that we used to when we were in the arcades. Okay? You shouldn't do that anymore. There's no absolute, you don't start with an absolute top 10 leaderboard for everything in the whole known universe over the history of time. Because if you do that, you will engage only a very small percentage of the population who are super aggressive, like super competitive people, and the people in the top. And everybody else will think like, remember, you used to go to the arcades with a pinball machine? It was like 175 million points. I'm never going to get on that thing, right? So it was demotivating for a lot of people. So leaderboards are pretty sensitive. They're not necessary for doing any of the things that we've described. They can be useful if used right. So here's what you do. All contemporary leaderboard design starts with a social graph. You put the player that's looking in the middle of the list. That's the new design. Don't do any other design on that. Players in the middle of the list, showing people above and below them. So they've got a positive incentive to move up and a little bit of fear of somebody else can push them out of the way. Right? Whatever it takes to be able to make that happen, you want to do that. Try to use the leaderboard view as an opportunity to move somebody up. So say, if you want to level up here, this is the next action that you need to take, invite some more people, whatever. And also you can display the absolute leaderboard as an optional view somewhere else inside of your experience for those that are interested in it. But you want to start with something more relative and something that takes a slightly more neutral position on absolute ranking. That make sense? You want to get that? Yes, sir.
As a follow-up to that, what's the difference in effect between providing that relative ranking and just a metric to show where the person is in the process? Like my LinkedIn
progress.
status is like perpetually at 75%.
Yeah.
Like would I be more motivated if I knew there was a bunch of...
Yeah. So progress mechanics, like a status bar that fills in over time, for example, are different from like a leaderboard. So a leaderboard is intended to show you how you compare against other people.
Sure.
It's mostly useful for competitive people. So that's where the mechanic is most useful, when you're trying to establish some kind of competitive position. It's not as useful just for self-reflective progress. For that, you would use something like a progress system, which doesn't really tell you how other people are doing. Right. Just tells you how you're doing. In most contemporary kind of, especially first-person games, anything with a social layer in games, you almost always have both. Some kind of progress on this level and some overall ranking of yourself against your friends or other people on Xbox Live, whatever the case may be. But it's not necessary that you have to use both mechanics. They both serve a different purpose and are useful to illustrate different things.
But generally effective combined.
They can be, yeah. And progress bars, I would say this, I say this with some reservation. There's very few situations in which a progress bar is not useful. For most of the designs that I've seen, almost always I'm noticing that, I notice that in most cases some kind of progress mechanic is useful because people want the feedback part of feedback friends and fun. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Do they find that is there kind of a dopamine inflation that you have to build in your games where the same motivations stop working as well as they?
So the question was a dopamine inflation, and so I talked a little bit about habituation before. Okay, so this is my waterline. I want to give you all the waterline. Some of you may have read it in the Times. Just came out about a month ago. New research says the average relationship has 2 years of romantic affection before it switches over to companionship affection. Right? About 2 years. It takes about 2 years.
Could I say that too loud?
It takes about 2 years. So the article was about people's happiness in relationships and saying that now that this study's been done and they're looking at this number, it's about 2 years. That's a natural thing, and many couples feel like they're failures when that happens, when it's no longer waking up every day, your heart swooning, right? And the happiest couples are the ones who accept that transition and say, that's good, that's what should happen, blah, blah. Okay. Anyway, if sex only has 2 years, if sex with the hottest person that you can possibly get only has 2 years, what's the bar for most of these applications and experiences? How high does your engagement system, how well tuned does it have to be to break through that mark? Consider how fun sex is. Right? So to the bigger point slightly from earlier, one of the things, it's a bit of a tautology to compare the two, because the relationship questionnaire and the affect questions about relationships are all intrinsic questions. They're all intrinsic behavior. They don't seek to measure any extrinsic reinforcement. They actually ignore that in the metric. It's not the same thing at all. The introduction of properly designed extrinsic reinforcement could potentially prolong that if that's the thing that you were trying to affect. So, number one, know what metrics it is you're trying to affect. must know. You must establish a baseline, you must start with that. Number 2, use intrinsic and extrinsic rewards and reinforcers to move people through. Number 3, consider that everything will have to scale over time. Everything. So, given that things have to scale, you definitely want to err on the side of virtual things rather than on physical things. Just fact. Yes, sir.
Do you have any metrics that show in social games who's willing to actually buy virtual goods to get an edge?
So the question is, how do virtual goods divide in terms of market demographics and who buys virtual goods for that? So, social games like entertainment games that's not the area that I focus in general. It happens to be, my background is a lot of casual gaming stuff, but virtual goods are popular with all different kinds of demographics depending on what the application of it is. I think, historically it's associated with a kind of tweenish audience, but it's not by any means limited or restricted to that. I think there's probably some fairly good data on virtual goods that you can probably find online. In the case of gamified systems, I think you see a fair amount of that go on. Usually they're introduced as a way of redeeming currency out of a virtual economy. That's their purpose in the kind of classic design. So if you have a virtual economy with a redeemable point system, then you'll need some. So you got to think about what those things are. And if I were you, the model seems to suggest that you're better off selling virtual items that are navel-gazing rather than like big picture. So things that allow you to dress up your avatar will sell better than donating 20 cents to charity or something like that. Yes?
Hi.
Hi.
Applied to education,
Yeah.
you talked about how gamification can increase fluid intelligence.
Yes.
Can you give examples of where you've seen that be successful?
So when I talk about gamification in ed, I often talk about gamification increasing fluid intelligence, which is our ability to reason. So the most demonstrable one, the one with all the good science behind it, is the game called N-Back or Dual N-Back. Talked about it before. N-Back, B-A-C-K, like my back, dual, two, N-Back. That's not a brand name, that's a type of game. And that's a game that's been demonstrated to raise people's fluid intelligence and also raise their IQ score. It's really hard, it's not like very easy to play, but it's very effective. It's really hard.
What's the name of the game?
It's a type of game, and it's dual, so like two, N, the letter N like November, back, like my back. So if you just Google, you hit dual N back, there's a number of different, totally for free versions of it you can play. You will be sad that I told you that. Yes.
Or discover your teams.
Status and access and power. What exactly is different between power and status?
Oh, great. Okay, sorry. I didn't actually describe the SABs to you, so let's do that. We'll end on this. So status is giving somebody something that allows them to level up against other people in the world. Usually, the other way of thinking about it is you're bragging for them. So instead of them having to say, I have a lot of money, right? Your Mercedes tells other people that they have a lot of money, right? So you're bragging for them. You're saying something for them, often in the form of a badge or some other kind of representation. Access is when you give somebody something that allows them to do something that other people cannot, and typically that they can't buy for money. Like the Guild example I gave you, a 15-minute head start, or early access to a new line of merchandise, or a special members-only day, or something like that. Power is when you give people control over other people in the real or virtual world. So, Guild leader on World of Warcraft, editor on Wikipedia, besides what gets in. That's a kind of benefit that you can give people. And then stuff is free things, discounts, coupons, things that cost money. Many benefits, many rewards are combinations of those. It doesn't have to be like only one thing. Often things kind of come together and they're paired, and you see various elements of each one in everything it is that you do. So they're not by any means mutually exclusive. And just think about the main thing is that status is a super powerful motivator, and that's the reason why it comes kind of at the top of the list. It's a little bit like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for those of you who studied Maslow. It's kind of looking at the very top triangle of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and breaking that down into slightly different a slightly different way. Okay, great. So, how awesome was this? Did you have a good time?
Yes.
Yay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me. I love it. We're family now. In a non-creepy way. I'm so loving that all of you are here with us right now because this is so good. We're going to do some awesome good for the whole world. And so this is, broadly speaking, this game is an innovation game. So it's a game designed to produce a large number of ideas from a group of people with a focused and limited amount of time, valuing everybody's time and contribution and allowing everybody opportunity to advocate for a view that they like. Everything that you do during this game, all of your contributions will roll up to the charity that we're working for today. So don't fear if throughout the process your idea doesn't end up being the one at the top of the heap. All of your ideas will get heard, so it's important to be as open as possible. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the mechanics of it, and then we're going to start to play. So critically, this type of game falls into a category of experiences called game storming, which is a portmanteau of games and brainstorming. Some of you may be familiar with the book of the same name. It's a great book, has lots of these different kinds of games in it. There's also a book called Innovation Games, and basically the idea is use game concepts, gamify the notion of brainstorming. So critically, in order to do this, you need to open the world. So we're going to adopt a set of rules. We're going to start the world. We're going to play a game. There's going to be a finite amount of time for every activity. Everyone's going to respect that. Then we're going to close it, and there's going to be resolution, and you're going to get resolution all in one location. Okay? Doesn't that sound like fun? All right. So to start off, to kick off the game, which is called 3-12-2, to kick off the game 3-12-2, we have our charity, which is Action.
First introduce Robin Hood.
Yeah. The Robin Hood Foundation.
Robin Hood's going to introduce Action.
Yeah, so I work for Robin Hood Foundation. I don't know how many people have heard of it, but we fight poverty in New York City, and we fund other agencies that actually do the work, like Action. There are 220 organizations that we fund, and I work specifically with regard to technology projects, so managing grants and technology projects. So Action was one of the first groups I thought of when Gamification reached out to us.
And my name is Paul Quintero. I'm the CEO of Action. For 20 years, I like to say we've been fulfilling big entrepreneurial dreams through small loans. And I will briefly just share how we began. A woman named Ubalda Alvarado came from northern Mexico, worked in the factories here in Brooklyn back in 1991, lost her job back when we were doing manufacturing. Her new child and her new husband obviously presented a situation where she had to find a way to earn income. In looking for a new job, she found a junkyard, and in that junkyard found a food truck. And back in 1991, asked the owner of the food truck, "What are you doing with it?" And he said, "Nothing." He says, "What do you want to do with it?" She says, "I want to lease it." And he said, "To do what?" And she said, "Well, I can't work in the factories, but I can make lunch for those that work in the factories." And he said, "Mexican food in New York, it'll never work." And so unfortunately, she didn't listen to him. And that one food truck started generating a little income for her. But after a few months, he said, "Listen, I'm not in the leasing business. I'm in the junkyard business. You have to buy this from me or forget your dreams about Mexican food in New York." She negotiated a $500 price for that truck. But she did not have $500 saved to purchase that truck. She heard about Action, and we lent our first loan ever in the United States to Ubalda for that truck, which became 2 trucks, which became 2 restaurants, which in the end helped support 4 kids, half of them through college. So with that, what's our problem?
Okay, wait, so before you say. Okay, so you got the background. So now, to do this game, we need a problem to work on, right? A succinct problem that we can work on.
After 20 years, our biggest problem is creating awareness by entrepreneurs that we exist and that our services of providing access to capital when you can't get it from a bank is available.
So, how do we create awareness? Do you want to write this down?
Sure.
How do we create awareness among entrepreneurs the existence of the awesome micro-lending service Action? Great. Okay, this is our problem. So, 3-12-2. First step, 3 minutes. Working on your own, with the index cards in front of you and the pen that you have, for 3 minutes, you're going to write down aspects of the problem. Okay? Now, let me tell you what an aspect is. Generally, it's a noun and a verb combo. It's something like this. If I told you the problem was, how do we fight childhood obesity? aspects you might write down would be things like fast food tastes too good, or parents not involved in kids' food decisions, or fast food is very cheap. Kids hate broccoli, okay? Those are all examples of aspects that you might write down. So now, working by yourself for 3 minutes, I want you to write down as many aspects of the problem as you can, one on each index card. If you need more cards, just raise your hand and we'll bring you some more, okay? We're doing it. It's
Domestic.
domestic.
Domestic. The question was it domestic? Or
Domestic.
international?
Domestic.
Domestic, US.
All right. Okay. So, if only I were that pretty. Okay. So, all right. So that was the 3. We got some ideas down, right? We got things in. We got a few aspects of the problem, not ideas, aspects down on the card. Okay. So now what you're going to do is you're going to turn to your neighbor, whoever's sitting next to you, and if you have if there's odd, if it ends up being odd numbers, that's fine. But really, I want you to work in pairs now. Okay. So working in pairs, take your cards, put them together, shuffle them up, yes, and draw one card. And based on the card that you draw, and you can draw a couple of cards if you want, based on those 1 or 2 cards, everyone, I want you to, as pairs, I want you to, what you're tasked to do is in the 12 minutes that you're about to get, based on those inspirations that you have, or anything else that comes to your mind, I want you to ideate a solution, okay? And you're going to write that solution on a card. A solution to the problem, how do we create awareness among entrepreneurs of Axiom? Okay? So, yeah, shuffle them together, pull out a couple of aspects, and based on that, ideate an idea, write that on one card, you have 12 minutes. Good idea in there to solve Axiom's problem. How do we create awareness among entrepreneurs for their great services? That's something good? Okay. So now what you're going to do is you're going to pair up with a nearby set of pairs. So there's about 8 of you in a group, 8 to 10 of you in a group, but preferably 8. So choose the people near you until you've got 8 in your group. And you're going to present your idea. Each pair is going to present an idea to the group, right? Present. And then decide on one idea that your group is going to put forward. Actually, you can pick 2. 2 ideas that your group is going to put forward to everybody in the room. Okay? So you're going to choose your top 2 ideas from all the ones that are presented to you right now. Okay? And so you have a total of 8 minutes to do that. So you got to do this pretty fast. Your 2 best ideas from your group. Okay? So come to a group nearby. I know. I know it's hard to be on time, but doing things in a forced amount of time is super valuable. Okay, so I'm standing up here by a whiteboard, and you've noticed that the game has gone from single player to teams of 2 to groups. And I asked you to focus in on the best idea from your groups. So some of you probably have already figured out that there's going to be some kind of ranking, and someone's probably going to win something, right? Yes.
There's one day left.
Yes. There are prizes. There are prizes for some ideas, and there's some ranking that's going to happen. So I'm super excited to hear all the great ideas we come up with to solve the problem. How do we create awareness about Acción among entrepreneurs? So let's start with this group right over here.
Right, we're getting the back one. Yep. Okay, so our aspect was that the people that you're trying to reach. Am I running?
No, I'm running.
We're trying to reach. Probably they might not have access to the internet.
Okay.
And so we needed to find a way of getting to them. And you can't just search on the internet.
Okay.
And so our thought was that you could go to the credit unions that they probably are members of.
Okay.
Hopefully, the bank that they would go to normally for a loan, but the bank, being very conservative as in today's climate, they can't actually give them a loan. But Acción's gone to them and said, well, if people like that come to you and you think they're a good fit, then refer us to Acción. That money then goes to that person if they get qualified. That money goes into the credit union. The credit union is winning because this money suddenly appears for this person. If the business does well, the credit union wins, and
yeah. Okay, so that was all right. So as the facilitator, some of you may have had a similar idea. You'll have to come up with something else. So as the facilitator for this, my job is to take these ideas now and translate them into very short snips. So if you're doing this, you're going to translate into short snips so everyone will remember that idea, right? So in this case, my digestion of that is, so credit, union, referral, partnership. Okay. Did you guys have a second one?
our second one was, if you.
You do the honors first.
So the second idea was to kind of leverage the customer base that you've built up over 20 years. So whether you call it social networking without a computer, whether you have some sort of user group, but in some way leverage those people that have been successful because our notion would be that entrepreneurs typically hang out with other entrepreneurs. So kind of drawing business that way.
Okay, so it's like a member referral program of some kind? Okay, I also get to editorialize because I have to.
What did you call it? Alumni network.
Okay, so alumni networking. Okay. It's useful to be even more specific than that, but we'll just leave it at that. Think about more specific. Yes. Next group. Thank you for those two great ideas.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
so
small
the first one is free lunch boot camp.
Okay.
So the idea is you go to where entrepreneurs gather in the real world, in meet space. So you go to meetup groups or church groups or small business groups or shared workspaces where a lot of small businesses are, and you provide them free lunch and a 2-hour boot camp on how to start a small business.
Okay.
And so you become seen as a good actor. You're giving them free lunch and free advice. Your name gets in front of them, and also you say, hey, if anybody in this room wants to take this advice to start a small business, here's my card. And so you become top of mind when someone's looking for help getting their small business off the ground. So you go to find not just the entrepreneurs, but the entrepreneurs to be.
Great. Free lunch boot camp.
Yep.
Idea number 2?
Idea number 2 is Entrepreneur Wiki.
Okay.
So it's essentially a wiki space for entrepreneurs to share ideas.
Okay.
And initially it'd be moderated by Acción, but as community members gain reputation, you can give them access and power and let them become editors. And so they can ask each other questions and give each other answers all under the Acción banner, so that the moment when they need funding or they want a question answered, you're top of mind. You can also see the wiki with your information to start with.
Okay, great. So an entrepreneurship wiki based on reputation. Awesome. Next group.
Our group basically wanted to leverage grassroots marketing. We thought of using testimonials in terms of the content of this lady, for example, and going into the community, partnering with community-based organizations, mass merchandisers such as Costco, where they have business accounts, and targeting those, and other social networking events where we're teaching something about maybe financial literacy, about taxes, etc., and providing workshops, and then drawing people from there and going to community board meetings. So really, it's just about going deep into the community, grassroots, and targeting them directly. Advertising in in Spanish language newspapers and other kinds of newspapers.
So that was one idea.
Well, we combined it all into one. Okay, there's another one.
Yes,
we have another one.
She glazed over one part of it that was important. We talked about using the inspiring story that he told about the woman with the trucks that went on to have 2 restaurants as the face of the campaign, and just delivering her message over various channels. So through social, maybe she's answering questions about business and coming through the process. Maybe she's got a YouTube channel doing recipes. Give her a face and have her kind of represent the whole.
So let me ask you a question. There is a second idea.
There is a second idea.
Okay. So sometimes this is so painful. My job is to distill this down. Okay, that's what I have to do. So I'm going out of all of that. The thing that got me was financial literacy in Costco. So that's what we're going with, and you guys can all remember all the different awesome things that were part of that. Okay, what was the second idea?
The other one is to host a series of Axiom networking events.
Okay.
Similar to this, to get other gamification people in, but in this case, other entrepreneurs, provide a space for them. And then also present it as a way to share clients, brainstorm ideas of problems, and if you are interested in starting a business, we'll also be able to provide you with potential for startup capital.
Okay, so it's sort of like AA for entrepreneurs.
Yeah. 12-step process.
EA's take.
Okay, cool. All right.
So what we were suggesting is that we do a partnership with a local bank that requests from the local community the different ideas that need are requesting a bank loan, and then that bank, that local community actually votes on which idea they actually want to fund.
Okay, so it's sort of like a crowdsourced list inside a community, and that gets funding.
That's correct.
Okay. Yes. Okay. And what's the second one?
The second one is very similar to the wiki, and so it's a crowdsourcing education community, essentially, because the problem we're trying to address is that microlending has this bad reputation of being loan sharks. So we're trying to repel that reputation. So in that community, there would be question and answer, and also case studies, and both questioners and answer people would gain points, and also becoming, as you level up, you become mentors.
Okay. So that's different from wiki, because that sounds more like Quora.
No, more like a Stack Overflow.
Okay. Alright, that's great. I love Stack Overflow, but Gamified Q&A website. Great. Next up.
So our idea was that you can reach out to the personal bankers of these banks and go to them and say, look, whenever you have somebody who's inquiring about a business loan, okay, send them over. If you can't give them loans, send them over to us. And every time you send us a lead, because it seemed like the problem was deal flow, every time you send us a lead, once you've sent us 20 leads, we'll put your name up on our website as somebody, as a person who's sent us, and sent us like charity potential. And that really does two things, right? So the banker gets to leave on a positive note. So he gets to say to his client, he gets to go, look, I can't give you a loan now. However, I think I have somebody who can help you, and it gives them personal status of ways that they can then future gamify for that specific individual, because banks are terrible messes of organizations. So if you just go, hey, is Bank of America going to do this? Whereas if you dumb it down to like an individual and you're reaching out to specific people, there's a way better chance that they're going to get it done. And then lastly, there's so much perceived red tape. Sorry?
Is this the same thing or is this the second thing?
It's kind of the same thing, it's a mix. But there's so much perceived red tape with charity funding and government funding that it's going to be forever to get done. And like, I'm not going to be able to do it. They want to control how I do it. So saying, look, we're going to give you a yes or no answer whether or not this is going to happen within 60 days. So immediately when I'm prioritizing where I'm going to try to get funding, I go government funding, but 60 days, it's a yes or a no, or a time frame that's specific, that immediately jumps to the front of my mind.
So was that the second idea? Was the 60?
Sure, is that our second idea? Do we want that?
We have a second.
Okay, we have a second one.
So by the way, I took the first one and it's called Banker Hall of Fame.
There you go.
The second idea is leveraging other networks that are around and in the community that have certain resources financially, a lot of people being involved, just large numbers. It gives some kind of camaraderie. So you're leveraging different kinds of organizations, whether it be religious, nonprofits,
Immigration.
Yeah,
immigration based.
and connect with those organizations so that you'll have a giant group of organizations, you'll be able to reach more people, and so it'll be easier to reach the individual.
So,
like organizational networking, I guess.
Yeah.
What kind of localized? So they're like
Community, micro and macro.
So I'm just gonna change that.
Go for it.
I'm just gonna change
you.
that up, and I'm just gonna say, like specific vertical community.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Vertical community networking.
Exactly.
That was the
One idea we had was,
You guys were all in one group, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
one idea we had was to kind of create a virtuous cycle.
Speak up a little bit.
One idea we had was to create a virtuous cycle, so the people who are going to be advocate for Action are going to be people who have already succeeded through the program, people whose lives have been changed because of it, and these people will generally come from the same communities where other people who need help or who can utilize these services will also be. So to be able to have them serve as not only people to bring in deal flow, but also as mentors and to offer services for them to go forward would be one idea.
Okay, so is it graduate mentor program? Is that what you? Okay. No, listen, I'm here to help. Okay, what's the second one?
The second one was pretty close to what's been stated. It was basically also a referral program, person to person, with the thought being that you're trying to reach people who maybe don't have access to social media or they wouldn't need an intermediary, and also have it be just a referral fee to the individual.
Well, nobody said that. So
yeah, I said it's
referral-
similar to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
So
different.
the referral program to refer your friends with incentives.
Yeah, or someone in your community who you think might have heard about your value.
Okay. Refer friends incentive. Okay, great. Okay, so that's all the groups, yes? Right? Okay, so here are all the ideas on the board. Let me recap them for you. Credit union referral partnership, alumni networking system, free lunch boot camp, entrepreneurship wiki with reputation, financial literacy program at Costco, AA for entrepreneurs, crowd voted funding of the best ideas, a Stack Overflow website for entrepreneurship, a Banker Hall of Fame, a vertical community networking program, graduate mentor program, and refer a friend incentive program. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to vote. Okay, so every team in here came up with 2 ideas, right? So each one of you is going to get 3 votes.
Each
You
one
know
being
why?
a team or each one being
Each
an
person.
individual?
Each person here is going to get 3 votes.
So we have to vote for yourself.
Right. So I'm forcing you, even if you're the kind of asshole who would only vote for yourself, which you're not, I'm forcing you to choose something that's something that you actually genuinely like, even if you're the kind of person who'd spoil your first 2 votes. Okay? So we're gonna get up here. Everyone can come up. Vote on your 3 favorite things. Just put a little check mark beside each one. And then we'll tally up the winners. Also critical for this, by the way, is we do this activity right now to close the loop for everyone to see how we did, right? Even though we know that Acción, it may take some time for Acción to vet and look at all the different ideas and do whatever they need to do. So come up here and vote, folks. All right, take a pen. Everyone gets 3 votes. Vote it up. Go for it. You don't have to wait. No waiting. Vote. Vote and pass the pen on to somebody else. Let's do it. Come on, you guys. Yep. Get in there and vote. Yes. Voting time.
Did you work on the news server?
I know. It's gonna get messy.
You guys want to just do lines?
Sorry?
Yeah. So who are the teams that came up, the pairs that came up with that? So Credit Union Referral Partnership, the pair of you, yeah. And who's the pair who had free lunch boot camp? Yep. And you guys are the pair who did the pairs that did. Okay, great. So you guys will all get books. I bought books for you. I will even sign them. But what we need is all of those. All the index cards that you guys wrote on, every idea, every aspect of every idea. If you can make sure that they're here, we're going to collect them. They're all going to go to Axion. I thank you all very much for your participation in this. Isn't this awesome? You're going to really help these guys. You're going to really help Axion make a difference with microlending, with entrepreneurship here, with all of your great ideas. And did you have any questions about this game? You guys get the game? You see what it does?
What
right?
do the numbers stand for? Maybe I missed the
minutes.
Oh, okay.
The first phase was 3 minutes, the second phase was 12 minutes, and the last one was 2 minutes for each pair.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
The last one was 2 minutes for each pair to present their idea to the group.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Any other questions? No?
Healthy mix of collaboration, competition.
Yeah. It has both.
Design of this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's why I really like it and why I play it so often. And so if you guys, if you you happen to be interested in this or any other subjects, or you want to get more involved in the community and stuff, come to gamification.co or shoot me an email, and we'd love to have you engaged. And I'm sure the Axion guys, thank you so much for all this. Thank you all so very much. Enjoy the rest of your social media week. I'll see you all soon. Thank you. Winners can come on over here. Oh, yeah.